We are going to now go into our NFL coverage of Week 3. And we are going to start off with the Patriots and Baltimore Ravens in that Sunday Night Football matchup. What were your thoughts in this game as the Patriots now have a losing record for their first time in over a decade?
It was a fantastic game to watch. Watching on Sunday night, it was a back-and-forth game. It's what you wanted to see. The defenses weren't all that great, but it seemed like they stepped up when they needed to. At the end of the game, yes, was somewhat controversial, but really the right team won. Baltimore played the better game in this game.
If you take a look at that play right there, that field goal, you can clearly see the ball is in when it's in slow-mo. And in this game, the Baltimore Ravens won 31-30. Tom Brady, the past 2 weeks have not done well. This week he was 28 for 41, 335 yards, and 1 touchdown right now. But the real story in this game was the strength of Torrey Smith. The Baltimore Ravens, Torrey Smith, played just within 24 hours of his brother passing away in a motorcycle accident and had a huge game with 2 touchdowns for the Ravens.
It takes tremendous strength to play in a game like that after you lose someone so close to you and have a game like you do. He obviously did it for his brother, and I'm glad that things worked out for him.
Absolutely. Thoughts and prayers go out to the Smith family. And now we're going to go into the most controversial game this past week in the NFL with the Packers and Seahawks, and we'll roll the highlights for you. As in the first half, Aaron Rodgers gets sacked 8 times. Count it 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 times. For a record, tying the record of sacks in a half in the NFL. And what can you say about the Seahawks defense, who looked alive in this one?
They looked good, but better question, what happened to the Packers offense of last year? Aaron Rodgers really hasn't been able to get anything going this year. It's sad to see because they were a fantastic football team last year, fun to watch. This year, they scored 12 points against the Seattle Seahawks, who end up with a win, a quote-unquote win.
And that was their worst outing since December 23rd, 2010, where they only scored 7 points against a Lions defense in a loss. But this is incredible to see the most prolific offense of last season in the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers just get bullied in that first half. No one could do anything. Their zone defensive reads, especially in the secondary of the Seahawks, were picking apart Greg Jennings, who was questionable for the game, ended up playing. What does this show for the Packers? We should show some stats for you of the Packers, of what they did this past week.
You know, it really doesn't bode well for the Packers coming. They really need to step up their offense. 268 yards in a game is not acceptable for the Green Bay Packers. Passing yards 184, Aaron Rodgers really needs to step up. He needs to be that MVP type guy that he was last year in order for them to win because their running game isn't very good.
Yeah, absolutely. Ryan Grant now gone over to the Redskins now. Not as much continuity within that running game. And everyone knows the Packers are going to pass. Maybe a little film work this offseason help them do some good. And we are going to preview now for Week 4 into what are going to be some of the huge matchups. Coming up, we're going to have the New York Football Giants against the Philadelphia Eagles, an NFC East rivalry, a classic in that one. And we also have a rematch of NFL's opener last season between the New Orleans Saints and the Green Bay Packers, where both teams scored 76 points total. Let's talk about this Saints and Packers matchup. Last year was a shootout, went to a goal line stand at the end. Do you see similar stats right now coming out of this game when the Saints are 0-3 and the Packers are 1-2?
You know, I don't. They're not the same teams from last year. They really have struggled on offense this year. You saw it with the Packers. They scored 12 points against the Seattle Seahawks. How can you expect them to go up against the Saints defense? I know Sean Payton is not there. Jonathan Vilma is not there. But at the same time, it's going to be a low-scoring game. It's not going to come down to the last play like it did last year in the opening game of the season where both scores were in the 40s.
That was a very impressive game, especially in Week 1 when both teams you would think were trying to, they didn't have a preseason.
Coming off a
lockout. They didn't have training camp. And so both teams were electric in that game.
Came down to a goal line stand in a 40-point game.
It was an incredible way to start the season, which was a memorable season last year.
Absolutely. For offense.
For offense. This year it seems there's a switch in trends as defenses are winning battles. And let's look into this Giants-Eagles matchup where last week the Eagles got pummeled by an Arizona defense who now all of a sudden is atop the league.
Yeah, the Eagles did not look good this past week. They scored 2 field goals against the Arizona Cardinals. I mean, their defense is good, but I don't think they're that good. I think the Eagles' offense should be more proficient. But at the same time, Eagles-Giants is going to be an electric game Sunday night at Lincoln Financial Field. Brian Dawkins' jersey is being retired. The atmosphere is going to be fantastic, especially an NFC East rivalry matchup for first place. It's early in the season, but first place still is on the line. Players know it.
Players do know it, and it's hard to go against the Giants last week as they were once up on the Panthers on a short week, 20-0. So it's going to be an interesting matchup to see whether you're going to see the Eagles of the first 2 weeks. Hopefully you don't because of the turnover ratio that they had in those games. But you also want to see if Eli Manning is going to be the Eli of old. Notice he has not had great numbers against the Eagles in past years, but for the majority of his games since the Super Bowl, he's been on fire.
He had a heck of a game. He had a 510-yard passing game, which is simply incredible. There's no way an amateur quarterback does that in one game. So I look for Eli to have a big game against the Eagles.
And so we wait for the week of 4 in the NFL.